Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this presentation on level top self-leveling overlayments. My name is Brian Salazar. I'm the Business Development Manager for Euclid Chemical. I've been with Euclid for about 32 years now, actually, in a sales capacity, in a sales management capacity, and for the last 15 years, give or take, in business development, dealing with designers, architects, and engineers, getting our product specified. I've been in the concrete industry since graduating from Seneca College in 1978, so 42 years roughly that I've been in the concrete business. So just a little bit about myself. So I just want to give you a brief history of the Euclid Chemical Company. Our core business really is composite concrete, including chemical admixtures, fiber reinforcement, new construction products, things like non-shrink grouts and curing and sealing compounds and sealers, that sort of thing. Also big in the building materials side, which is concrete repair materials, decorative concrete, which is where this presentation fits in, and waterproofing as well. Now, Euclid Chemical is a part of the RPM Corporation. RPM is essentially a holding company. Annual revenue in a range of about $5.6 billion. The company's broken up into three different divisions. There's a consumer division, you see on the left side there, with consumer products like Rust-Oleum, DAP caulkings, Varathane paints you may be familiar with from the local supply houses like Canadian Tire or Depot or whatever. In the center, you have the specialty section, which is basically some coatings and the EFIS systems, our drive-it company. And then on the right side is where Euclid fits in under the industrial segment. Sister companies are Tremco, Stonehard, Carboline, companies you may be familiar with as well. So the Euclid company, on the bottom right of that, you'll see all the companies under there, including Increte, Betamat, Cave out of Peru. So we are an international operation with many, many locations throughout. So just a little bit of a history of who Euclid is. So let's get into the main reason we're here today, which is to talk about self-leveling underlayments and a new generation of these products. What I'm going to cover is basically selecting the right product, some features and benefits of these products, surface preparation, bonding agents, proper installation procedures, and then at the end I have a few completed jobs, both in a slide format and as well as a short video on a project that was completed recently out in Oregon. So just to get started with a couple of terminology terms, self-leveling underlayments are commonly used in the industry. They've been around for decades, and these are essentially cementitious products that are designed to level out or smooth surfaces that will ultimately receive another floor finishing, something like carpet, tile, wood flooring. They're really not designed as a suitable wearing surface. So they're underlayments, as the name implies, something goes on top of them. The self-leveling overlayments, which we'll focus on today, are also cementitious compounds. They're designed primarily to be left exposed, and they are indeed suitable as a wearing surface. They're very tough materials, high compressive strength materials that perform and behave very similar to concrete, as if you were to have a exposed concrete floor. This is a typical scenario for a self-leveling underlayment. This is to receive coverings only. They're Portland cement based, sometimes gypsum based as well, and typically applied over a latex primer. And then something else goes on top of it, sometimes within days, but sometimes deferred by months during the construction process. So why do we use these cementitious overlays, or what's interesting about them? Well, the primary reason that we use them is to restore damaged new concrete. Poor finishing, weather-related damage that occurs because we are pouring concrete in inclement weather, sometimes a bit of rain, sometimes snow, sometimes freezing conditions where the concrete may freeze and you end up with degradation of the surface, as you see here in this slide. We also use it an awful lot for retrofit and remedial work. This is where you're taking over a new retail space, typically a new commercial space perhaps, where concrete has been previously repaired. There are patches on the floor. Anchor bolts have been replaced with pieces of concrete or patches of concrete or epoxy. The aggregate exposure is inconsistent because most often these floors were covered with something, be it wood flooring, carpet, tile, they really weren't designed to be exposed. So once you start that polishing process, you do see the inconsistencies. And in this case, you can see the aggregate is definitely not very uniform as far as the exposure is concerned. You've got a high degree of aggregate in some areas, virtually none in others. So these areas just make it look ugly. And if you're expecting a nice clean slate, nice exposed concrete surface, this kind of takes away from it. When you're dealing with existing tile floors where the tiles have been scraped up and now they're trying to polish that concrete to make it look shiny and presentable, that ghosting that you see there is from the tile joints, and this is impossible to get out of the floor through grinding. It goes down quite deep and you can't actually grind through that. So because of that, most often owners will want to have something new on that floor to make it look like a brand new concrete floor. Sometimes you go into a renovation situation where you've torn up the carpet, or in tile in this case, and you see the patchwork that was done prior to that flooring material being applied. This also causes problems, and it doesn't look very good if you're expecting to have a nice, consistent, polished concrete look. Crack repairs also, the same sort of thing. It's very difficult to get that taken care of and then make it look appealing. So this is where we generally would lean towards these self-leveling overlayments in order to make that one consistent blank slate, if you will. So we have to select the right product, and there are a few of them to choose from, and I'll talk about a few of the features and benefits of these products. There are three different specialty solutions that we offer under the Level Top line. When you want to see that Portland cement concrete look, uniformity of aggregate, a terrazzo look, something that's polished and shiny, and that can also be stained or dyed, Level Top PC Ag for exposed concrete gives you that polished look, and this is what we would be after. The Level Top is a proprietary blend of aggregates that remain near the surface. They're black and gray typically, and they give you that Portland cement concrete look, if you will. The product is dimensionally stabilized by using fibers and shrinkage compensating materials. And we started with the product in just a basic gray. We introduced a white a year or two ago, and then now we do offer the Level Top materials in up to 5 different colors, so we can have the material pre-pigmented, so you don't have to worry about staining or dyeing the surface at a later date. So Level Top gives you that exposed aggregate polished look with the PC Ag. Soon we hope to introduce some colored aggregates as well. Right now it's just the black and the white aggregate, as I mentioned, to give you that salt and pepper look. This is an example of something with a red aggregate as well. We can do it with cut glass sometimes. So we're looking at all sorts of different architectural finishes, if you will, in order to enhance the basic black and white. So another of these products, when you're looking to get that polished look but no aggregate exposure, we have or if you're looking to have it stained and dyed as well, we have Level Top Polish. Now Level Top Polish is a similar material installed similarly. The compressive strength of these products are typically in the 7,000 PSI range, so it's typically higher in compressive strength than the base concrete is being applied on. And we can do this by polishing the concrete surface to give a uniform shine and an appearance overall. So this is an example of a highly polished surface. I believe this was a 1600 grit level. There's no coating or urethanes, waxes, or topical sealers on this floor. It's just polished concrete, polished Level Top, I should say, with the densifier that's being used in these applications during the grinding and polishing process. So it can really become quite a shiny surface if that's what you desire. Most often we wouldn't go this shiny because although it's no more slippery than a tile floor, it just looks slippery because of the shine, and people get scared about that. So we tend to back it off a little bit and maybe go up to an 800 grit, which gives you a nice shine, but it doesn't look quite as intimidating as this one. The third option is the Level Top Stain. Now this is where you want just to stain or dye a surface and to have a mottly appearance, but have it sealed and still have a nice aesthetic appeal. This is an example of the Level Top Stain. A couple of different colors. Typically the stains are in earth tones, so we're looking at some browns, tans, greens that have been blended together to give this motley appearance, and then it's sealed with a clear epoxy to give it some durability and serviceability so that the color doesn't wear just by foot traffic. So 3 options. You've got the level top PC Ag, which gives you that exposed aggregate salt and pepper look. You've got the level top polish, which is just for polished plain concrete, or if you wish to have it stained or dyed. And then you have the level top stain. All 3 of these, again, can be coated, sealed, covered. They can be used as underlayments sometimes, but generally there are other better products designed for underlayment purposes. These products tend to be a little more pricey than the typical underlayment, so we reserve this for the exposed flooring systems only. So typical applications for this type of material, retail and commercial is very big. Recreational facilities, warehouse aisles to actually give it a new running surface on worn out slabs. Office and medical buildings, restaurants, hotels, malls, arcades, residential. We can use it as an underlayment, as I mentioned, decorative and polished, and fast track applications where you need to have a quick turnaround time and get back on that slab. When we look at doing this, and this is a question that comes up quite regularly, is how quickly can we turn this floor around? How quickly can I get my customer or my client back on the floor? From start to finish, from the surface preparation of the base concrete to the actual polishing and sealing, we can do this in probably a 3 to 4 day turnaround time. The whole idea of these level top products is to install them one day and be polishing within about 24 hours after the application. So if quick turnaround is something that's important, we can get this thing turned around. Generally 3 or 4 days can do it, depending on the size and the intricacy of each individual job, but that's a typical scenario. With these polishable materials, we do use reactive sealers for the polishing in order to help densify and seal the surface. Eco Diamond Hard is our densifier sealer that's most often used with these applications. It's a sealer and densifier, as I mentioned. The sealing part is a siliconate portion of it, and then it's also made with a silicate, which gives us densification. This allows us to minimize tire marking, particularly if you're using it in warehouse applications. It's easier to clean. It's water-based with no odors. We do have CFIA approval for it, so if you're dealing with food processing facilities, it can be used for those applications. So the zero VOCs also means that it can contribute to lead points as well. A lot of exposed concrete in lead projects these days, and these lead jobs require the points to be accumulated, and by offering something that has 0 VOCs, it can contribute to that along with the concrete itself. It's for new or existing floors, so these products, as I mentioned, can be applied to both. It can be polished, and because it's polished in and not on the surface, there's nothing to wear off. So this becomes an integral part of the concrete surface itself. It reduces porosity, increases the surface density, and resists penetration of liquids. Look at the 2 little pictures at the bottom. The one on the left side is just a densifier. So the densifiers will tighten up the surface and densify it, but it doesn't repel liquids. On the right side, you've got the Diamond Hard, which is a combination densifier and sealer. So you can see the water doesn't soak in near as quickly. So it gives the owner time to clean up if spills do occur, and it doesn't affect the slab and won't stain as readily as if it was just a densifier. So here's a good example of the typical application. Polished concrete surface with a densifier, polished to a fairly high degree, easy to maintain. Any oil spills and so on can be easily cleaned up and not affect the overall appearance of the floor. Polished concrete offers an improvement in air quality, less energy for lighting. It's a brighter workspace. It's easier to clean. And a survey or a test program was done at Western University a few years ago just to compare different floor methods. And this all came about because of lead situations where they're considering removing tile or wood laminate, that sort of thing, and just have exposed concrete floors. When you're dealing with concrete, the VOC emissions in milligrams per cubic meter per hour is 0.003 for concrete. For carpet, it's 80 or 0.08, I should say, 27 times higher than concrete. For linoleum, it's 73. So, or sorry, 0.22 or 73 times as high as concrete. And when we get to vinyl flooring, it's 2.3 milligrams per cubic meter per hour, 767 times that of concrete. So you can see why a lot of these projects tend to go with low VOC materials if possible. And by using concrete, you can't get any lower than that as far as a finished floor material. So the level top system, the level top products, is essentially concrete. It's cement and fillers and aggregates and other plasticizers and so on in a bag. So it is essentially concrete. So we're offering very low VOC contamination in that regard as far as air quality is concerned. When it comes to preparing and installing these materials, surface preparation is key. We do follow the International Concrete Restoration Institute guidelines as far as surface preparation is concerned. And they prepare a guide and these 9 different plates, concrete surface preparation or CSPs. And when we install these type of products, we look for a CSP of 3 to 5, giving us sufficient texture that we can actually bond this material property to the concrete substrate. This CSP guide includes up to number 9, which is a very aggressive profile for doing thicker concrete applications. But for the thinner materials like the level top, a CSP of 3 to 5 is sufficient for what we need. Along with that comes a chart that identifies different means by which the contractor can actually achieve that CSP of 3 to 5. So in this particular scenario, we'd be looking at something like acid etching or grinding, abrasion, sandblasting, steel shot blasting, scarifying. Something in that method would achieve that CSP of 3 to 5, so we'll have a properly prepared surface in order to apply the material. This is a typical shot blast machine that is used to abrade the surface. Steel shot is used almost like sandblasting, except it's a self-contained system with a vacuum hose that extracts all the dust and debris. And on the right side, you can see the dark area hasn't been treated. The piece on the left side has been shot blasted, so it's now got an appropriate texture for this. As far as bonding is concerned, depending on the type of overlayment or underlayment you're using, we do need different materials. For polishable overlays, most of them require an epoxy sand primer. This would be a high performance epoxy material. This is because we're putting heavy duty equipment on here to polish and buff up that floor. So we want to make sure we have the best bond possible. For the stain applications, level top stain, we could get away with something like Tamsweld, which is a latex primer. And for underlayments, the same sort of thing. We can use Tamsweld. This is a latex primer that doesn't have as much bond strength. So here we're applying the epoxy. The epoxy is applied first to the well-prepared surface. Then a broadcast of dry silica sand is applied to the surface to refusal. So we don't want to see any wet spots on the floor itself. This is what it looks like after the aggregate has been applied. So now we've got a saturated epoxy surface with this sand. Once that epoxy dries, we take a scraper and knock off all the unbonded sand. Then it's vacuumed and cleaned so that we have a nice, clean, very sandy, gritty texture in order to bond the concrete to. So the self-leveling topping itself, the installation, can be done a couple of different ways. For smaller jobs, we use a hand mixer, typically just a bucket with a mixer and a mixing paddle. You can see the self-leveling consistency here. Very easily spread using a notched trowel, very flowable materials. For larger jobs, we can use a pump system, which much higher volume, so they can actually get much greater square footage done in a short period of time. And basically, you're just following with the pump, extracting the material out of the hose. So here we've got a very short video as to how this material should be mixed and the proper mixing procedure. Okay, now when it comes to the actual polishing of the material, we use these heavy-duty grinder units. They're diamonds, weighted to about 500 pounds. There are diamonds in the tools that are used in the polishing process. This has a counter-rotating head with 3 different heads on it, with different diamond grits that would be applied, much like sandpaper, from coarse to fine. So the metal bonds are the ones used for the initial grinding and removing some of that surface in order to expose the aggregate in the case of the PC Ag. And then we switch to the resin bonds from there, which is used for the polishing process to make it as shiny as needed. So here's the material being polished again, starting with something like a 200 grit material. In between those operations, it's cleaned. Here we're applying the Diamond Hard Densifier, which is an integral part of all these overlayment materials. It's a densifier sealer, as I mentioned. So after the initial grinding process, all the debris is cleaned up, the dust and so on, and then it's treated with the Diamond Hard to help densify the surface, and then we carry on with the polishing process. And there's the end result. So quite a bit of steps involved in this, but that's why it takes a bit of time. But even having said that, we can generally get away with this in 3 or 4 days. So here are some completed projects that have been done over the last few years. Starbucks, this was a nice job, gives us a nice overall look, consistent, that aggregate exposure that people are looking for. The Bass Pro Shops, where they wanted the level top stain in order to give them that orange color that you see there. This is one of our distributors out in BC called Brock White. They recently redid their Langley location with the PC Ag in the gray color. You can see it's fairly recent. You can see the COVID COVID markers on the floor, in fact. So this was done about 3 months ago, I suppose. And this was another school in Tempe, Arizona, where they used the PC Ag in the steel gray color. It's a cafeteria area where we just use level top polish with a nice 800 grit, I believe this was, as a finished material. Tilted kilt pub, another good application. So there are lots of good areas that we can use this. And I've got a short video here as well to show you the flat stick pub in Oregon that was done about a year ago, I suppose, a year and a half ago.
The concrete overlay business, I think, is just going to open up a realm of opportunity. Traditional concrete polishing, you really need, to make it a nice looking floor, you really need a new slab. But you look at the concrete polish overlays such as Euclid's, it's perfectly consistent. It's going to give you a consistent salt and pepper look. Essentially give you the look of a brand new floor on an old floor.
We see level top PC Ag and other polishable toppings, their primary benefit is the quick turnaround TI industrial applications. Potentially turn a product over to our customers in a 3 to 5 day period.
Where we're sitting right now is called the Flat Stick Pub, downtown Spokane. In this project specifically, we had 2 days of preparation, and in 1 day, 7,000 square feet, we're able to pour an entire brand new floor from start to finish in 5 hours. And within 16 hours, we're able to get on the floor and start the grind and polish process. From there, come in here and fix any kind of patching areas that need to be up to par. We come in and put an epoxy with a sand just to give it a solid substrate to adhere to. Then we'll come in here and we gear up to do the actual pour. We set all of our edge forms, anything that's not going to terminate up against a wall, to that 1/2 inch elevation. And then at that point, it's just a big production. We poured this floor in about 5 hours, 7,000 square feet, about 850 50-pound bags. In that short time, it's just incredible that you can put down a brand new floor. You have constant mixers. You've got runners moving the material itself. You've got guys that are moving it around with gauge rakes. After the pour is complete, come in again 16 to 24 hours later. We come in and do our initial cut, refine the floor with our traditional concrete polish tooling. And in this case, we're start to finish, we're about 5 to 6 days on the floor, and at that point, it's a sold floor.
You know, Flat Stick Pub was an excellent opportunity that Cameron Riley brought to the table for us. You know, it had its own unique characteristics as far as an existing substrate that we had to do bond tests with, you know, fast turnaround floors, something that's going to be durable, something that's going to look good. We marry up with just the key players that fit our, you know, our same philosophies. Doing the best work we can, making sure that we have something that we can hang our hats on at the end of the day that our customers, our owners are going to be happy about.
And there you have a completed job, a very successful job. I said Oregon before, it's actually Washington State. I knew it was out there in Dave Dillon's territory somewhere. I just lost track which one it was. But you can see how quickly that whole process can be done from start to finish with the proper surface preparation, the application of the epoxy bonding agent with the sand, then the mixing and placing, and then 24 hours later, they can get started polishing. So the turnaround is what attracts a lot of folks because most often when we're dealing with renovation jobs, the timelines are quite narrow and you have to get in and out as quickly as possible. So you can't afford to put something down that you have to wait a week for curing and then start a process of polishing and so on. So it makes a lot of sense to go to something like one of the level top type products, either the polish or the PCAG. Another question that comes up quite often actually is, can we apply this on wood substrates? And the answer is yes and no, only because wood substrates tend to deflect sometimes. And if it's not well supported, this is essentially concrete, so it could crack. So we can do it, but there are particular requirements that we have to meet before we can actually do that on a wood substrate. So thank you all for attending today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you have any questions or concerns, my information is attached to the listing of the seminar, I believe. Thank you.